If you draw and if you've struggled with your drawing and been a bit discouraged because you don't feel you've been improving, you've doubtless received this advice. And that's keep at it. Keep practicing. If you just keep doing it, you'll improve. The problem is you're not sure that you have. In fact, if you're honest with yourself, rather than seeing improvement, you feel that you're seeing a certain sameness that you don't like. Why is it with all the practice, this improvement doesn't come the way it seems to come for other people? Let me explain what I've come to understand that's led me to believe that this well-intentioned advice of keep at it, keep practicing, and you'll get better can be not just unhelpful, but can lead to discouragement and at worst waste a lot of time and energy and passion where we could actually be improving instead. The problem with this advice is that it's simply not true. That almost invariably, if we simply keep practicing, what we're doing is more of the same over and over. And you may have heard the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. And it's the same with our drawing. If our practice means we're doing the same thing over and over again, then there is absolutely no reason why we're going to get different results. It's not how much we draw, but it's how we draw. Let me explain in a simplified form what I've come to discover through my own drawing practicing is a far more helpful way so that my practice can lead to improvement. In fact, my practice has led to improvement, and I can draw things now that I wouldn't have even attempted a few years ago. So let me diagrammatically show now what I think the steps are so that our practice does and in fact will invariably lead to improvement. When many of us draw, this in fact is what we think the process is. This is where we start and this is where we finish. Ink on paper, or if you draw with pencil on paper, or charcoal on paper, or wash on paper, whatever. But in fact, what we need to understand is that the drawing process is actually two parts. But also, there's a part of the process that comes before when we actually put our pen on the paper. So if once I've got my reference, or I've got in my mind what I want to draw, which means my imagination is my reference, if straight away my pen is on the paper and I'm drawing, I've neglected all of this. So what is it I've neglected? The first thing I've neglected is the observation. Have I seen what I need to see to be able to accurately put the ink on the paper? And I'm not talking of a one-off. I mean, all the way through the drawing process, am I continually seeing the things I need to see to give me a chance of actually capturing the effect I want on my paper? The second point is what I call the creative translation. And that's having observed what I need to observe and worked out from that observation. I need to then work out from that observation, how now do I translate something in a photo into something that I can produce with ink on the paper? This is not an inkjet printer. So how will I translate what I've seen in a way that will create the results that I'm wanting to create? And if you're finding this helpful, can I ask you to hit the like button, because that helps me. And I would love to hear which of these issues you think perhaps holds the most promise for your improvement in future drawings. Or if you have a friend who draws who you know is struggling with the issue of improvement, please share this video to them. It may just give them the clarity in their understanding of the process that fast tracks them onto the drawing improvement they're so wanting. This third thing that comes before ink hits the paper, flows very quickly, or at times simultaneously with this, how am I going to translate it? And that's as I work out what am I going to do with my ink on the paper to achieve this translation? So where do I start? What starting point is going to give me the best chance of getting to the finishing result I want? Once I've started, how do I progress? How do I keep the proportions correct? How do I keep the scale correct? What sort of marks am I going to produce with my pen to get the results I want? And what materials will give me the best chance of getting the result I want? Is it the pen that I happen to have in my hand, or is it something else? The fourth area is my technical skills development. Have I in fact achieved the skills I need to carry out the strategy, the translation of what I've observed? If I'm drawing large-scale architecture, am I actually able to draw straight lines freehand smoothly and easily enough to create the effect on the paper that I want? Because there's no point trying to do here with this if it requires skills I haven't actually developed yet. And the final thing that comes before this is what I call the previous critiques. And that's where I look at my drawings after I finish them and I say, what's not right? What am I not happy with? And why am I not happy with it? And how can I focus on my next drawing so that I achieve what I'm wanting to achieve? This is one of my more recent drawings. And when I was adding these lines for the corrugated iron sheeting, instead of aligning the sheets with this straight edge, I started at this end where we had a line which gave me the wrong angle, which then meant I get this awkward misalignment of these lines with this line. Now that may or may not look like a big deal for you, but for me it was very frustrating as these were just about the last lines I did in the drawing. So next time I do a drawing, I will be very focused on this, but it's only because I critiqued my drawing and thought, what do I need to do next time to improve? Improvement is not accidental, it is not automatic. It comes from focusing on what I've done wrong in the previous one, what I've not been happy with, not to discourage myself or to beat myself up, but to give myself every chance of improving from that place the next drawing I do. And this gives me a focus not just for the next drawing, but also for the next critique. So next time when I do a drawing that has this corrugated sheeting, when I critique that next one, I'll be paying particular attention to what I had identified as a weakness in this drawing. We have never become too experienced to not learn from critiquing our work. And it's our learning that produces, that fuels, that feeds improvement. Now, of course, when I draw, there is ink on paper. But before I start putting the ink on paper, I make sure that I've observed everything I need to observe. I've worked out in my mind, what am I trying to achieve in my drawing? And what does that mean for the sorts of things I'm going to do? How do I translate what I've seen, the effects in my reference, to the effects I want to create in my drawing? How will I get a sense of the shadows on the wall? What marks will I need? How will I create a sense of separation between these palms and the building behind? Because if I start putting ink on the paper before I've thought through the translation process I need, and I've worked out how I'm going to do that, then my ink on the paper, my marks, is not going to necessarily go anywhere in the right direction. And of course, once I've worked out my strategy and I've thought through the marks I need, I actually need to have the technical ability to draw them. I actually need to be able to do the curves that I see in my mind that I've worked out I need for this scene. If part of my creative translation is that I want to have a great sense of distance, then I need to have a strategy to create the sense of this is much further away than here. If I just start drawing, if I rush to the ink on paper, then even if I've got the technical skills, I may not actually be using them. And particularly with ink on paper, every mark is going to be there at the end. My drawings have improved because as I've gone from drawing to drawing, my drawings have improved because I've come to understand that this is what actually produces my drawings. This is the fuel that flows in the process that produces what I do. And if I want this to work better, if I want to see improvement in this, the answer is not to do more of this, but it's to do more of each of these more consciously, more carefully every time. What I found is that I've become better at observation. I've become better at learning what I need to see in my reference to begin with. I've become better at creative translation. I've become better at understanding the possibilities of what I can create with the ink on paper. I've been better at making choices of composition and value and manipulating my reference so that I'm not just trying to copy a photo, but I'm trying to create an artwork with ink on paper. I've got better at planning my strategies, and I've got more strategies in my mind because I've worked hard at this. What are the things I need to do before I draw? And before I started this drawing, I experimented with marks to see, do the marks I have in mind, the creative translation of my photo into a drawing, into ink on paper, the things I've got in my mind, do they work? Do they work well enough? Sometimes the very act of having a little practice session means I either discover they're not going to work or I need to change a little bit what I had in mind. But by doing this every single drawing, and can I say there's not a single drawing you've seen me do on a YouTube video where I haven't done this, and I don't mention it unless it's relevant to the video. But this is one of the most essential steps I take every time. And if I didn't, then my ink on the paper wouldn't be nearly as effective. With the technical skills development, if we're thinking through creative translation and we're searching for what we need to be able to do, and then we work out ways we can do it, and then we practice it, this is where practice is helpful. I will develop the technical skills I need, ever increasing skills over ever increasing width or breadth of types of skills as I practice them. But for that improvement to happen, I still need to critique, be my own teacher and mark my own work and work out, what am I happy with? What am I not happy with? Sadly, occasionally this process doesn't tell me what I need to know before I start to draw, and I discover in the drawing what I would have liked to have known beforehand. But by critiquing my work, I at least discover it at the end of this drawing, and in my next drawing, I'm fully prepared. We improve with what we do over and over again. And if my drawing process involves this every time, then I will improve. I'll improve in each of these processes, and I'll improve in then working them together when my pen is actually on the paper to produce the result that I'm after. But by rushing to the ink on paper, then my practice can be reproducing the same weaknesses over and over and over again, which over time can actually make it harder for me to see what's wrong with my work, because I get so used to seeing what I do that it starts to look right. It starts to look what I expect to see, and that then makes it very difficult to move on from that. If we really want to improve, if we really want to get the best out of our ink on paper time, then this is the process that we need to be improving on, that we need to be practicing every time. G'day, I'm Stephen Travers. Look, I hope you found this helpful. As a summary, if you've watched a lot of my videos, you've heard a lot of these points before, but I thought it would be helpful to put it diagrammatically onto paper. But look, whatever you draw and however you draw it, and really however it turns out, make sure you have fun. I'll see you next time. Bye.